Okay, Will.
This is Thanos, the mad titan who wiped out half of all life in the universe with a snap of his fingers. He's the greatest threat the Avengers ever faced, and honestly, no other villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe even comes close. Marvel has given us dozens of villains, some good, some bad, but no one measures up to Thanos. So, what makes him so special, and why have so many other villains in the MCU failed to reach the same heights? Let's break it down. The first reason Thanos stands so far above every other Marvel villain is because of how long he was developed. He wasn't just dropped into a movie as a one-off villain like Ronin or Yellowjacket. He was teased and hinted at for years before he became the central threat. Think about it. We first see Thanos in a mid-credits scene of the Avengers back in 2012, and from that moment on, Marvel slowly built him up as the ultimate villain. We didn't even see him take center stage until Infinity War in 2018, a full 6 years later. That's a long game that allowed his presence to grow in the background, looming over everything that was happening in the MCU. By the time Infinity War came around, we knew that Thanos was the puppet master behind multiple events, pulling strings from the shadows. This build-up gave him weight and importance. When he finally arrived, we understood just how big of a threat he was. This kind of long-term investment in a villain is rare. Marvel villains like Ronin, Caecilius, or even Ultron didn't get that luxury. They showed up, fought the heroes, and were defeated within the span of a single movie. In comparison, Thanos was the ultimate payoff for years of storytelling. He wasn't just a villain, he was the culmination of multiple plot threads that had been woven throughout the entire MCU. That's a huge reason why he works so well. One of the things that sets Thanos apart from nearly every other Marvel villain is that he's not just a power-hungry maniac. Sure, he's powerful, but he's also got conviction. He believes, truly believes, that what he's doing is for the greater good. His goal isn't just to conquer worlds or amass power for its own sake. He wants to restore balance to the universe by wiping out half of all life. Now, that might be horrific, but in his mind, it's necessary. Thanos sees himself as a savior. He's not some mustache-twirling villain out to destroy everything. He has a philosophy, a twisted sense of morality that drives him. This makes him relatable on a certain level because, to him, he's the hero of his own story. Compare that to villains like Ronin, Malekith, or Whiplash. Their motivations are either too vague or too cliche. Ronin, for instance, just wants to destroy Xandar out of a sense of Kree superiority. Malekith, he wants to plunge the universe into darkness. But why? What's driving them? We don't get much depth beyond surface-level villainy. Thanos, on the other hand, is driven by a deeply personal belief that overpopulation will cause universal destruction, and it's his duty to prevent it. Whether or not you agree with him, you understand why he's doing what he's doing, and that makes him more compelling. He's not evil for the sake of being evil. He's a villain with purpose. Another major reason why Thanos stands out is the amount of screen time and story development he's given. In Infinity War, Thanos is almost treated as the main character. The story revolves around him and his quest to collect the Infinity Stones, giving the audience a chance to understand him and follow his journey. We spend nearly as much time with Thanos as we do with the Avengers. Now, compare that to someone like Malekith or Ronin. These villains don't get the same level of development or screen time. They show up, announce their evil plans, and then we're quickly thrust into a final battle. There's no time for the audience to connect with these characters or understand their motivations beyond, I want to destroy things. Even Ultron, who had a lot of potential as an AI bent on human extinction, didn't get enough time to fully flesh out his personality. He was menacing, sure, but the pacing of Age of Ultron didn't give him enough breathing room to evolve into a truly iconic villain. Thanos, by contrast, had multiple films building up to his final confrontation. By the time we got to Endgame, his presence had been seared into the MCU. Marvel gave him the space to be more than just a bad guy. They gave him the room to be a fully fleshed out character. Another reason Thanos resonates so much with audiences is his emotional depth. Despite being a massive, powerful, world-ending threat, Thanos is still capable of genuine emotion. One of the most shocking moments in Infinity War is when Thanos sacrifices Gamora to obtain the Soul Stone. He may be a villain, but in that moment we see that he is capable of love, albeit twisted. That's something we rarely get from other Marvel villains. Take Malekith, for example. He's a dark elf who wants to plunge the universe into eternal darkness, but we never get to see what drives him emotionally. There's no sense of internal conflict or personal stakes in his mission. He's just a flat character with a generic evil goal. Even someone like Hela from Thor, Ragnarok doesn't have the same emotional weight. She's a powerful villain, and she has a personal connection to Thor as his sister, but we don't really explore her emotional side beyond her desire for conquest. Thanos, on the other hand, is given moments where we see his vulnerability. He's conflicted about sacrificing Gamora, and in Endgame, we even see a younger version of Thanos who is slightly more arrogant but still driven by the same belief in his cause. This level of emotional complexity makes Thanos feel real, despite his monstrous acts. You don't just fear him, you understand him. When Thanos arrived, the stakes were real. He didn't just threaten a city or even a planet, he threatened the entire universe. And more importantly, he won. Thanos accomplished his goal of wiping out half of all life in the universe by the end of Infinity War. That's something no other MCU villain has ever achieved, an actual, definitive victory. This made the stakes feel so much higher. With Thanos, it wasn't just about stopping the bad guy, it was about reversing the biggest catastrophe the universe had ever seen. Other villains rarely come close to this level of impact. Take Ronan, for example. His entire plan was to destroy Xandar, a single planet. Malekith wanted to plunge the universe into darkness, but his threat never felt as immediate or as devastating as Thanos's did. When Thanos won in Infinity War, it shocked the entire MCU fanbase. The Avengers lost, half of all life was gone, and there was no immediate solution. That sense of consequence is what made him so terrifying and memorable. Compare that to someone like Yellowjacket in Ant-Man. He's a threat to Scott Lang and his family, but the stakes never feel like they extend beyond that small circle. Thanos, on the other hand, changed the entire course of the MCU. So why do so many future Marvel villains struggle to reach the same level as Thanos? Part of the reason is that Thanos set the bar so high. He wasn't just a villain, he was the final boss of the MCU's first 3 phases. Any villain that follows him inevitably gets compared to the Mad Titan, and that's a tough act to follow. Another issue is that Marvel hasn't given future villains the same level of build-up or development. Characters like Kang the Conqueror are being set up as the next big bad, but without the years of teases and small appearances that Thanos had, it's hard to build the same sense of dread and anticipation. Villains like Agatha Harkness and Gore have their own unique qualities, but they haven't had the same lasting impact on the MCU's overall narrative. Marvel now faces the challenge of trying to top themselves after giving us one of the most compelling villains in cinematic history. Thanos worked because of the time and care put into his character, and until Marvel gives that same attention to their future villains, it's unlikely any of them will measure up to the Mad Titan. So why do Marvel's villains never measure up to Thanos? It's because Thanos was more than just a villain. He was a fully developed character with clear motivations, emotional depth, and years of build-up leading to his final confrontation. Other villains haven't been given the same time, complexity, or narrative weight. Thanos set a standard for MCU villains that will be hard for anyone to reach, and unless Marvel invests in their future villains the way they did with the Mad Titan, we may never see a villain like him again. But what do you think? Can any future Marvel villain surpass Thanos, or is he the peak of MCU villains? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the Marvel Universe.